For the month of June, PPI comes in unchanged. We're expecting up 0.2.
Jerome Powell, and what's your justification if you're thinking about this to do this?
Too late. He's always been too late, hence his nickname, Too Late. He should have cut interest rates a long time ago. Europe has cut them 10 times in a short period of time, and we cut them none. The only time he cut them was just before the election to try and help Kamala or Biden, whoever the hell it was, because nobody really knew. Obviously, that didn't work, but he tried to cut them for the Democrats, Kamala. And how did that work out? You'll tell me. It didn't work out too well, did it? But I think he does a terrible job. He's costing us a lot of money, and we fight through it. It's almost, the country's become so successful that it doesn't have a big impact, but it does hurt people wanting to get a mortgage. People want to buy a house.
So yesterday we covered the relatively tame consumer inflation report that I tried to warn everyone. Democrats were jumping the gun on the narrative in this regard. We, of course, heard endless talk yesterday about how, core inflation went up by 0.2%. And never mind the fact that is once again below the so-called expert forecast. This is proof that tariffs are causing inflation, and Jerome Powell is right about keeping the interest rates high. It's definitely not political. Well, ladies and gentlemen, today a new inflation report has come out that is further vindicating the narrative that actually, no, as a matter of fact, the tariffs thus far have had little to no impact on overall inflation. The difference, if it even exists, is extremely marginal. And essentially what's been happening is they're looking for any small, tiny little bump, right? Never mind the fact we had 8 to 9% inflation just 2 years ago. Any 0.2% increase, see, this is proof the interest rates need to stay high. It's not a political decision. No, of course it is. But today, ladies and gentlemen, the new report out is on the front of producer inflation, right? This is basically measuring the costs of wholesale goods, raw materials, things like that. And ladies and gentlemen, what if I told you that the new inflation on the front of wholesale goods is exactly 0.0%. That is right, 0% inflation, and yet Jerome Powell is running around telling us that we need to be keeping interest rates high because I definitely know what I'm talking about. And look, you're going to see the impact in the June. Just wait till the summer, right? Well, the summer is here. We're still waiting for it. These almost like crazy tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists are looking for any little sign. Oh, inflation went up 0.2%. That see, we're already in the Great Depression, 1929. No, these things, guys, are simply not happening, yet the experts still don't want to admit that they're wrong. So we'll give you those full details in today's video. First though, folks, as usual, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you are new. We are almost at 500K, so help us get there. Support the mission. Hit that red button. With that said, so let us read for you the article, and we'll play the little CNBC clip because people always like those. But a measure of wholesale prices showed no change in June. Oh, it might be time to get a Costco membership finally, but no. Providing a conflicting sign over whether tariffs threaten to boost inflation in the coming months. Well, again, keep in mind, we were supposed to have it by now. It's the summertime, okay? June 20th passed already. Where is it? We're still waiting for it. Okay. The producer price index was flat, according to seasonally adjusted numbers from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Economists surveyed by the Dow Jones had been looking for an increase of 0.2%. So that is right. Once again, you have an inflation number here, guys, newsflash, that is coming in below expert expectations, who were calling there for 0.2%. Now, this once again begs the question, right? If Jerome Powell's logic is that, well, our little models, our little forecasts are predicting future inflation, that's why we need to keep interest rates high. Well, if your models and forecasts keep being wrong every single time, okay, it is 5 straight months now that we've seen the repeated pattern of the economists being wrong about these things, then how can you keep justifying keeping interest rates high based on predictions that are wrong, right? He's operating in an alternate reality, but nonetheless, the same was true for core PPI, producer inflation there, which also was expected to show a 0.2% rise. Guess what the number was? Zero. What's happening though? I thought if you do 30% tariffs on China, for instance, shouldn't the prices go up 30%? Isn't that how it works? No, that's not how it works, because after all, it turns out businesses know how to optimize and effectively make their businesses more efficient. And guess what? They were never going to pass on 30% prices to consumers, which it's very interesting too here, right? Their logic, you heard this all the time, right? If they increase the tariffs on Nike shoes by 25%, expect your prices to go up 25%. That has not happened. So if you see a 0.2% change in consumer inflation, that's their proof that, like, see, we told you so. No, you didn't tell us so. Okay, you don't understand how the economy even works. You don't understand how business operates, etc. Anyways, combined with Tuesday's consumer price index release, the data suggests that President Donald Trump's tariffs are only indicating a marginal bite on the U.S. economy and the price for goods and services. That is, of course, also not considering the massive benefits that are coming here with those very tariffs. Though the numbers and for headline and core wholesale inflation were subdued, final demand goods rose 0.3%, but were offset by a 0.1% fall in services. So essentially, things are basically remaining the same here, right? With the goods category, tariff-sensitive communication equipment posted a gain of 0.8%. Core goods prices rose 0.3%. But at the same time, the PPI level for May initially reported a 0.1% increase. It saw a revision to 0.3%. But again, here, not talking about anything major, right? However, markets are still, despite all of that, right, pricing virtually no chance of a cut when the Fed meets at the end of July, and have been reducing odds for a September move. Even back down to September, they don't want to lower the rates. It's insane here. Fed officials have said they remain cautious about the impact that tariffs will have on inflation and believe the U.S. economy is in a strong enough position now that they can wait to see the impacts before acting here on the rates. Yeah. I mean, you have a real estate market that is literally at a standstill because people don't want to buy anything while they're just waiting. Okay, everyone's standing around and waiting. You know what happens? Investment slows down, purchasing slows down. That actually brings the economy to a standstill. It's not actually a good thing. But anyways, here you go. Take a listen to CNBC report these very details for themselves.
For the month of June, PPI comes in unchanged. We're expecting up 0.2. Unchanged would be the smallest inflationary wholesale increase since it was minus 0.1 in March of this year. Strip out food and energy, it remains zero. Unchanged, zero. And that would comp towards April when we were minus 0.2, which, by the way, was lowest inflation rate going all the way back to April of 2020. If we strip out food, energy, and trade, unchanged. That also would comp towards April of this year. Now, let's take a bigger view, year over year. Year-over-year headline expected 2.5 comes in 0.2 light, 2.3%. That would be the lightest in the Wayback Machine going to September of last year. If we strip out food and energy, up 2.6, a tenth light, and that is 0.4 less than the rear view mirror, which was up 3%. That 2.6, well, we have to go back to July of last year, 1 year, and that was 2.6. Find a lower number. You're in April of 24. And finally, the year over year, ex food, ex energy, ex trade, 2.5%, 0.2 lighter than 2.7, 2.5, Wayback Machine, you're equally where we were in November of 23. To find a lower number, you're in February of 21. Now, that is all very good news. These numbers are less than expectations. They're sequentially less.
You know, it almost gets tiring, right? Doing the same video over and over again. Oh, the economy's beating its expectations. Yeah, gee, you don't say. Maybe it's time finally now to just get rid of Jerome Powell and freaking lower the rates. I mean, what else needs to be said at this point? Because at this time, guys, just less than a month ago, it's worth noting the side by side here, Jerome Powell went and stated himself, right? What did he say? He's been saying this the whole time. We are refusing to cut interest rates because, quote, everybody I know. Who does he know? He, himself, and I, right? Who is he talking about? Everybody I know is forecasting a meaningful increase in inflation from the tariffs. We're still waiting on that. Even the number yesterday from the core inflation, you guys, that is not a meaningful increase. Okay? Meaningful increase looks like Joe Biden inflation. That's what you call meaningful increase. We once again have a situation, yes, where the core CPI consumer inflation beat the expectations for a fifth month in a row, right? They were higher, the predictions were higher than the end result. And guess what? The June monthly change in producer inflation was 0%. How can this guy continue to justify what he's doing or even having a job? It's just an open question here, and it's frankly kind of perplexing.
And what we're waiting for to reduce rates is to understand what will happen with really the tariff inflation. And there's a lot of uncertainty about that. Every forecaster you can name who is a professional forecaster with adequate resources and forecasts for a living is forecasting pretty significant. Everyone that I know is forecasting a meaningful increase in inflation in coming months from tariffs, because someone has to pay for the tariffs, and it will be someone in that chain that I mentioned between the manufacturer, the exporter, the importer, the retailer, ultimately somebody putting it into a good of some kind, or just the consumer buying it. And all through that chain, people will be trying not to be the ones who pick up the cost. But ultimately, the cost of the tariff has to be paid. And some of it will fall on the end consumer. We know that because that's what businesses say. That's what the data say from past. So we know that's coming. And we just want to see a little bit of that before we make judgments prematurely.
And follow up on that.
Again, these guys have basically just become a form of tinfoil hat conspiracy theorists, basically screaming to the world, wait for it, you're going to see meaningful inflation. Okay, we're still waiting. Even yesterday, 0.2% below expert forecast, that still is not meaningful inflation. Okay, that still brings the year-over-year rate lower than it was even in 2024, when Jerome Powell, by the way, did cut the rates. You look, by the way, even to nations like Japan, they have higher inflation than us. Do you know that? They have stagflation actually right now. They still cut their rates. Swiss bank, recently out of Europe, same exact decision there. There is really only one central conclusion, is first of all, Jerome Powell is obviously sabotaging the U.S. economy. And secondly, as you will see here in last night's CNN exchange with Scott Jennings and the panel as usual, they are just looking for any little minute detail to meet their confirmation bias rather than dealing with the actual realities of the economy, which is to say, we just have not seen that tariff inflation. And it truly is astonishing to watch. Take a listen.
The panic over this report today is unwarranted, but I do think data is worth watching every month. But it's not. But it seems like a lot of panic for no reason. You're getting matched reports every month.
It's not panic when we were promised on August 15th of last year that the price of eggs, that the price of bacon, and the price of apples. 69%. Actually, eggs year over year are up by 20. Are up 27%.
They're down.
I'm sorry.
Since he took office, they're down.
But if year over year.
He promised when he took office they would go down.
Hold on. Let's not fight about statistics here. She's right. Year over year, they are up significantly. Month over month, they've gone down, but that's from their high, which occurred partly due to bird flu and other things.
Right. So let's be very clear. He promised three things: the price of eggs, the price of bacon, and the price of apples were going to go down. I can quote him. It was on August 15th of last year. He said they're going to go down almost immediately when I become president. All of them are up. They're up year over year, and that's a fact. And these, you think it's hysteria or whatever you called it. People are suffering. You know how I know this? Because I heard all about that from you last year when I would debate you, and you kept talking about how the price of eggs is really high. Well, guess what? It's much higher now than it was when you and I were debating.
You're literally lying about the eggs.
Wait, excuse me. They're up. No, whoa.
Eggs are down.
Guys, stop. Okay, Scott, before you accuse her of lying, I literally just went over this. She is correct that year over year, the
price... Since Donald Trump took office, what happened to the eggs?
Oh, my God. Do you not understand that the difference between...
Who was the president last year at this time?
Scott, do you understand?
And then when did they spike?
Julie, let me just resolve this so we can move on, because this is a silly conversation.
You totally derailed this conversation. She's trying to have a serious panel, and you're out here arguing.
You are derailing the conversation.
No, I'm not.
Pardon me.
She's not telling the truth about the eggs.
But you're derailing the conversation, okay? I think people have the ability to understand the difference between the price of eggs today and the price of eggs a year ago today versus what you would prefer to talk about, which is the price of eggs when Donald Trump was inaugurated. You're just talking about
his policies.
You're talking about two different time horizons. Okay? Let's just leave it at that and move on. Please continue.
They made it higher than what.
I mean, what is this absolute stupidity? It's not relevant what the price of eggs was when Donald Trump was inaugurated? No, that's the most important statistic of them all. Okay, you could also, what are you going to go back and say, hey, eggs were cheaper in 1985 than they were now? No. It's about the situation he inherited and what has he done with the country he's been given, okay? And the objective fact is he was inaugurated with high egg prices. He was brought in largely because of Joe Biden, killing a bunch of chickens. You know the situation there. And the egg prices have been on a downward trajectory they keep going down month over month. What's the argument to be had there, right? Yeah, guess what? I guess in some sense the economy still has to recover the supply chain from the millions of chickens massacred by the Biden administration. I mean, perhaps that part is true. But literally, okay, it's just so ridiculous to say it doesn't matter what egg prices he had when he took office, the before and after change. That's ridiculous. It's just utterly insane. By the way, what were egg prices, okay, year over year? Let's talk about the egg prices in 2022 then. What about then? Is that not relevant then? I don't even understand. Just a totally ridiculous point. But see, this is the thing, is that they're just desperately trying to grasp onto anything to prove, hey, look, Donald Trump's destroying the economy. Look, somehow this is going to be worse than what you saw in 2022. It's just not. It's just not in any aspect of the economy, okay? Even things where you're trying to say the tariffs are raising prices by like 0.8%, all these numbers they keep throwing at you, still nothing in comparison, right, to the nation he inherited, and that is simply true. Of course, perhaps another underrated point about all of this is the resurgence right now of the American working and middle class in terms of wage growth. Now, it's far to say that, the job is done, right? Because I think that there are still, massive aspects of progress that need to be made in this regard. But it is worth noting that despite all the hysteria, all the, Facebook economists talking about how Trump's economic approach here and policies will not work, JD Vance just today was in an event right now, noting that for the first time in a very long time, workers' wages are rising faster than inflation, which means when you compare, salary to the price of things, the actual purchasing power of Americans right now is going up. And I have to imagine maybe the immigration restrictionist policies, right? You see a lot more wage and job growth going to native-born Americans, whereas under Joe Biden, it was basically the opposite. Almost all 90% of new job creation was going to non-Americans and foreigners over American citizens, and perhaps even the protectionist approach, right? Kind of incentivizes more jobs, higher wages, better treatment, deportations, obviously having something to do with that. And, you really wonder how much this is going to be covered. Are they going to have a meltdown about this on CNN? Probably not, but take a listen.
And here's what I am most proud of. What I am most proud of over the last 6 months, the border is important, and it's great, and it's incredible that we were able to go from the worst open border to a closed border in just a couple of weeks under President Trump's leadership. But you know what I'm really excited about? I'm really excited about the fact that for the first time in a very long time, workers' wages are rising faster than inflation. You're able to buy more, you're able to do more, and we're just getting started. For decades in this country, the story was that blue-collar workers in particular, they might get a little pay raise or they might not get any pay raise at all, but it was never enough to keep pace with inflation. No matter how hard you worked, no matter how hard you came to work every single day, no matter how many overtime hours, for example, you put in, you were falling behind. Way too many good Pennsylvania families were falling behind. And under just 6 months of the president's leadership, we've got inflation is coming under control, and blue-collar wages are rising faster than they have risen in 60 years. That is a testament to great presidential leadership and the great American people.
It's just funny to watch the constant repeated cycle of how the administration right now is just simply making life better in America on many fronts, right? Deportations and the hysteria over deportations are clearing up the traffic, literally helping America's overcrowding problem in our major cities in many ways in terms of quality of life issues. You're seeing, for instance, the price of gas massively go down, right? That's an undeniable fact. Maybe that's one price we can all agree on. Certainly down under the Trump administration. Amazing new job growth going to native-born Americans, not to, foreign guest workers, illegals, H-1B, all this different stuff. Wages, right? Going faster than the rate of inflation. Inflation, by the way, as a result of tariffs, not really existent. Meanwhile, tariffs are balancing our federal budget. We actually covered that story back in June as to how for the first time in a long time, the U.S. Treasury is noting a surplus because of tariff revenue. Like they're just making the country better. And these people have nothing besides, melting down over the price of eggs that are literally going down, right? It's kind of hysterical to watch. They're just so desperate to find something on the policy front, okay? But trust me, right? Just wait. We said it was going to be June. Now it's July. Wait till August. Then we're going to be in the Great Depression. Oh, are we? Okay. So with that said, guys, let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. What do you think of the recent economic news, all that stuff? Let me know. Be sure to leave a like on this video. Subscribe if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.